Judge Harrison Blackwell walked out of the big court building. It was a cold evening in October. The wind was blowing hard. He pulled his expensive coat tight around his body. His black leather shoes made clicking sounds on the stone steps. Harrison was 52 years old. He had gray hair and cold blue eyes. People were afraid of him in the courtroom. He was known for being tough and mean. He never smiled. He never showed any kindness to the people who came before him. His driver was waiting by the black car. The car was shiny and new. It cost more money than most people made in a year. Harrison liked expensive things. He lived in a big house on the rich side of town. He wore suits that cost thousands of dollars. He ate at fancy restaurants every night. As he walked toward his car, he heard something. It was music. Piano music. The sound was coming from the small park across the street. Harrison stopped walking. He turned his head toward the sound. The music was beautiful. It was soft and sad. It made something inside his chest feel strange. But Harrison did not like this feeling. He did not want to feel anything. He had built walls around his heart many years ago. Harrison frowned. He was angry. This was a nice part of the city. Rich people lived here. Rich people worked here. There should not be any street musicians here. Street musicians were for poor parts of town. They were dirty. They were beggars. They did not belong in his world. He could see some people standing around the park. They were listening to the music. Some of them were putting money in something. This made Harrison even more angry. These people were being fooled. Street musicians were all fake. They pretended to be good at music to get money from stupid people. Harrison looked at his expensive watch. It was 7:30 in the evening. He should go home. His cook would have dinner ready. He would eat alone like he did every night. Then he would read law books in his study until it was time to sleep. But the music kept playing. It was getting louder. More people were stopping to listen. Harrison saw a woman in a fur coat drop a $20 bill. He saw a man in a business suit clap his hands. This was wrong. This was very wrong. Harrison made a decision. Tomorrow morning he would call the police. He would tell them to remove the street musician. This was his neighborhood. He paid high taxes. He should not have to listen to this noise. The music stopped for a moment. Then it started again. This time it was a different song. It was even more beautiful than the first one. Harrison felt his heart skip a beat. But he pushed the feeling away. He was good at pushing feelings away. He got into his car. The driver asked where he wanted to go. Harrison told him to drive home. But as they drove away, Harrison could still hear the music. It seemed to follow him. It seemed to get inside his head. At home, Harrison ate his dinner. It was expensive food made by his expensive cook. But it tasted like nothing. He could not stop thinking about the music. He could not understand why it bothered him so much. After dinner, he went to his study. The room was full of law books. The walls were covered with his awards and certificates. Pictures of him shaking hands with important people hung everywhere. This room showed how successful he was. This room showed how far he had come from his poor childhood. Harrison sat in his leather chair. He opened a law book. But he could not read the words. His mind kept going back to the music. He kept thinking about the people who stopped to listen. He kept thinking about their faces. They looked happy. They looked peaceful. Harrison could not remember the last time he had felt happy or peaceful. He closed the book. He walked to the window. He could see the park from here. It was dark now. The street musician was probably gone. The people were probably gone too. Everything was quiet and normal again. But Harrison still felt strange. There was something about that music, something familiar, something that made him think of things he did not want to remember, things from long ago, things from before he became rich and powerful. Harrison shook his head. He was being silly. He was a judge. He was important. He had worked hard to get where he was. He had no time for stupid feelings about street music. He went to his bedroom. It was a big room with expensive furniture. The bed was huge and covered with silk sheets. Harrison put on his silk pajamas. He brushed his teeth with his gold toothbrush. He looked at himself in the mirror. The man in the mirror looked successful. He looked powerful. But he also looked tired. He looked lonely. Harrison did not like what he saw. He turned away from the mirror quickly. In bed, Harrison tried to sleep. But the music kept playing in his head, over and over. The same beautiful, sad melody. It made his chest feel tight. It made his eyes water. This had never happened to him before. Harrison had not cried in 40 years. He had not let himself feel sad in 40 years. He had learned to be hard. He had learned to be cold. It was the only way to survive. It was the only way to succeed. But tonight something was different. Tonight the music had broken through his walls. Just a little bit. Just enough to make him remember that he was still human inside. Harrison finally fell asleep. But his dreams were full of music. And in his dreams he was not a judge. He was not rich. He was not powerful. He was just a little boy, sitting next to someone he loved, listening to piano music in a small, poor apartment. When he woke up the next morning, Harrison was angry. He was angry at the street musician. He was angry at the music. He was angry at his dreams. He was angry at himself for feeling anything at all. He got dressed in his most expensive suit. He ate his breakfast without tasting it. He got in his car and told the driver to take him to work. But first they would stop at the park. Harrison had something to say to that street musician. The next morning, Harrison woke up at 6 o'clock. He always woke up at 6 o'clock. He did the same things every morning. He took a shower. He shaved his face. He put on his expensive suit. He ate breakfast alone at his big dining table. But today was different. Today he could not stop thinking about the music from last night. The beautiful piano music that had made him feel things he did not want to feel. The music that had followed him home. The music that had filled his dreams. Harrison was angry about this. He did not like feeling confused. He did not like remembering his dreams. He had spent years building a life where everything was in control, where everything was planned, where there were no surprises. At 7:30, Harrison got into his black car. He told his driver to take him to the court building, but first they would stop at the park. Harrison wanted to see this street musician. He wanted to tell them to go away. When they got to the park, Harrison saw her. It was a young woman. She looked about 25 years old. Her hair was long and brown. It was tied back in a simple way. She wore old jeans and a sweater that had holes in it. Her shoes were worn and dirty, but her hands were clean. Her fingers moved across the piano keys like they were dancing. The piano was old and had scratches on it. Someone had given it to the park years ago. Most people ignored it. But this young woman made it sound like the most beautiful instrument in the world. There were already people listening. A man in a business suit stood with his coffee cup in his hand. He had forgotten to drink his coffee. A woman with a baby stroller had stopped walking. The baby was quiet, listening to the music. An old man sat on a bench nearby. He had tears in his eyes. Harrison felt that strange feeling in his chest again. The music was so beautiful. It made him want to sit down and listen, but he pushed that feeling away. He was here to do a job. He was here to stop this nonsense. He walked up to the small crowd. People moved out of his way. They could see he was important. They could see he was rich. His suit cost more than their cars. His shoes cost more than their rent. Harrison stood right in front of the piano. The young woman looked up at him. Her eyes were dark brown. They were kind eyes. They were sad eyes, but they were not afraid. "Excuse me," Harrison said in his loud judge voice. "I need to speak with you." The young woman stopped playing. The music ended suddenly. The people in the crowd looked disappointed. Some of them started to walk away. "Yes?" the young woman said. Her voice was soft and polite. Harrison felt all the people looking at him. He felt powerful. He felt in control again. This was better than listening to music and feeling strange things. "I am Judge Harrison Blackwell," he said. "I work at the court building across the street. I live in this neighborhood. What you are doing here is wrong." The young woman tilted her head. She looked confused. "What am I doing wrong?" she asked. "This is fraud," Harrison said. "You are pretending to be a real musician. You are taking money from innocent people. Real musicians play in concert halls. Real musicians have studied for years. Real musicians do not sit in parks begging for coins." Some people in the crowd gasped. They could not believe what they were hearing. The music had been so beautiful. How could anyone call it fraud? The young woman did not look angry. She did not look hurt. She just looked at Harrison with those kind, sad eyes. "My name is Maya Chen," she said. "I am a real musician. I have studied music for 15 years. I went to music school. But I do not have money to rent a concert hall. I do not have money for fancy clothes or expensive instruments. Does that make my music fake?" Harrison felt uncomfortable. He had expected her to run away. He had expected her to be scared. But Maya was not scared. She was speaking to him like an equal. No one spoke to Judge Harrison Blackwell like an equal. "Anyone can learn songs from the internet," Harrison said. "Anyone can memorize popular music. That does not make you a real musician." Maya nodded slowly. "You're right," she said. "Anyone can learn songs from the internet. But can anyone put their heart into the music? Can anyone make people feel something when they play? Can anyone take their pain and turn it into beauty?" Harrison did not know what to say. He looked at the people around them. They were all listening. They were all waiting to see what would happen. "Music belongs to everyone," Maya continued. "It does not belong only to people who can afford to buy tickets to fancy concert halls. Music is for the man who works 2 jobs and walks through this park on his way home. Music is for the woman who is lonely and needs something beautiful in her day. Music is for the child who has never heard classical piano before." Harrison felt angry again. This young woman was making him look bad. She was making him seem like the mean person, but he was not mean. He was just practical. He was just realistic. "If you were really talented," Harrison said, "you would be playing in the city orchestra. You would be giving concerts. You would not be sitting in a park asking for handouts." Maya smiled sadly. "Do you know how many music school graduates apply for one position in the orchestra?" she asked. "Do you know how much money it costs to give a concert? Do you know how hard it is to get anyone to listen to classical music these days?" Harrison did not know any of these things. He only knew about law and courts and being successful. "I play here because this is where I can reach people," Maya said. "This is where my music can make a difference. Yesterday, an old man told me my music reminded him of his wife who died last year. A teenager told me it was the first time classical music made sense to her. A businessman said it helped him feel calm before a big meeting. Is that fraud?" Harrison felt the strange feeling in his chest again. The feeling he had felt last night when he heard the music. The feeling he was trying so hard to push away. "Real musicians," he said, trying to sound important again, "play music that requires years of training. Music that has real emotion, not just popular songs that please crowds." Maya's eyes lit up a little. "What kind of music would you consider real?" she asked. Harrison thought about this. He remembered going to concerts when he was younger, before he became so busy with work, before he stopped caring about beautiful things. "Classical pieces," he said. "Compositions that tell stories. Music that comes from the heart, not from a computer screen. Music that cannot just be memorized and copied." Maya nodded. "I understand," she said. She put her hands back on the piano keys. "Would you like me to play something like that for you?" Harrison looked around. More people had gathered. They were all waiting. He felt trapped. If he said no, he would look foolish. If he said yes, he might have to admit that this young woman was actually talented. "Fine," he said, "but when you cannot play anything real, when you can only play simple popular songs, then you will have to leave this park alone." Maya looked at him for a long moment. There was something in her eyes that Harrison could not understand. It was not anger. It was not fear. It was something else. Something that made him feel nervous. "All right," Maya said quietly. "I will play something for you. Something real. Something from the heart." She placed her fingers on the keys. She took a deep breath. And then she began to play. Maya looked at Harrison for a few seconds before she spoke. Her brown eyes were calm. She did not look angry, even though he had called her a fraud in front of all these people. She did not look scared, even though he was a powerful judge who could make trouble for her. "I understand what you think," Maya said in her soft voice. You think that music only has value if it is played in expensive places. You think that only rich people deserve to hear beautiful music. Harrison felt his face get red. That is not what I said, he replied. But deep down he knew that was exactly what he had meant. You said real talent belongs in concert halls, Maya said. But who decides what is real? Who decides where music should be played? The people around them were listening carefully. Harrison could see them nodding their heads. They agreed with Maya, not with him. This made him more angry. I decide, Harrison said in his loud judge voice. I have education. I have experience. I know the difference between real music and street performance. Maya smiled, but it was not a mean smile. It was sad. When was the last time you listened to music? She asked. Not background music in a restaurant. Not music in a movie. When did you last sit and really listen to music? Harrison could not remember. He had been too busy working, too busy making money, too busy being important. Music was a waste of time. Music did not help him win cases or buy expensive things. I do not have time for such things, Harrison said. I have important work to do. Then how can you judge my music if you do not even listen to music? Maya asked. This question made Harrison very angry. No one questioned his judgment. He was Judge Harrison Blackwell. People respected him. People feared him. People did not ask him questions like this. I know what good music sounds like, he said. And I know that real musicians do not sit in parks begging for money. Maya stood up from the piano bench. She was much shorter than Harrison, but somehow she seemed bigger than him in that moment. You keep saying the word real, she said. What makes music real to you? Is it the price of the ticket? Is it the fancy building where it is played? Is it the expensive clothes the musician wears? Harrison did not know how to answer. He had never thought about these questions before. Maya continued. I learned to play piano when I was 5 years old. My mother worked 3 jobs to pay for my lessons. When I was 10, I won a state competition. When I was 15, I got a scholarship to music school. I studied for 8 years. I can play Bach, Beethoven, Chopin, Mozart. I can play pieces that most people have never heard of. Does my old clothes make this knowledge fake? The crowd was getting bigger. People were stopping on their way to work. They wanted to hear what would happen next. Harrison felt uncomfortable with so many people watching. If you are so talented, Harrison said, why are you not famous? Why are you not playing with the orchestra? Maya laughed, but there was no joy in the sound. Do you think talent is all it takes? She asked. Do you think the music world is fair? Do you know how many talented musicians work as waiters and store clerks because they cannot find jobs playing music? Harrison had never thought about this. He believed that if people worked hard, they would succeed. That was how it worked for him. But maybe music was different from law. The city orchestra has 50 violin players, Maya said. They get one new position every 5 years. 300 people apply for that one job. What happens to the other 299 musicians? Do they stop being real musicians because they did not get the job? Harrison felt confused. Maya was asking questions he could not answer. She was making him think about things he had never considered. And concert halls, Maya continued. Do you know how much it costs to rent a concert hall for one night? $15,000, plus the cost of advertising, plus the cost of hiring other musicians, plus the cost of printing programs. A young musician would need $50,000 just to give one concert. How many people have $50,000 to spend on one night of music? Harrison spent more than that on his car. He spent more than that on his clothes every year. But he had never thought about how much it cost to make music. So we play where we can, Maya said. We play in parks and subway stations and coffee shops. We play for people who cannot afford $50 tickets. We bring music to everyone, not just the rich. Is that wrong? Harrison did not know what to say. Maya was making sense. But admitting she was right would mean admitting he was wrong. And Judge Harrison Blackwell was never wrong. Anyone can learn songs from YouTube, he said, trying a different argument. That does not make you a real musician. You are right, Maya said. Anyone can learn songs from YouTube. But can they understand the music? Can they feel what the composer felt when he wrote it? Can they make other people feel it too? She walked closer to the piano. Her fingers touched the keys gently like she was greeting an old friend. Music is not just about playing the right notes, she said. It is about telling a story. It is about sharing emotions. It is about connecting with people. A person can memorize 1,000 songs and still not be a musician, and a person can know only one song and still touch hearts. Harrison watched her fingers on the keys. Even when she was not playing, her hands looked like they belonged there. You said real musicians play music that requires years of training, Maya said. Music that has real emotion. Music that comes from the heart. You are right about that. She sat back down on the bench. The crowd moved closer. Everyone wanted to hear what she would play. But you are wrong about one thing, Maya continued. You think that kind of music only exists in concert halls? You think poor people do not deserve to hear it? You think music loses its value if it is free? Harrison felt his heart beating faster. Something about the way Maya was talking made him nervous. Like she knew something he did not know. I'm going to play something for you, Maya said. Something that requires years of training. Something with real emotion. Something that comes from the heart. And when I am finished, you can decide if it is real or fake. She looked directly at Harrison. Her brown eyes seemed to see right through him. But I want you to promise me something, she said. I want you to listen. Really listen. Do not think about your work or your money or your important life. Just listen to the music. Can you do that? Harrison felt trapped. All these people were watching him. If he said no, he would look foolish. If he said yes, he might have to change his mind about Maya. But he was Judge Harrison Blackwell. He was not afraid of some young woman with a piano. Fine, he said. Play your song. But when it is just another simple melody that anyone could learn, you will have to admit that you are not a real musician. Maya nodded. And if it is something more? She asked. If it is something that touches your heart? What then? Harrison thought about this. He did not believe his heart could be touched by street music. His heart was protected by years of success and wealth and power. That will not happen, he said confidently. Maya smiled. This time the smile was not sad. It was knowing, like she had a secret. We will see, she said. She placed both hands on the piano keys. The crowd became completely quiet. Even the traffic noise seemed to fade away. Harrison crossed his arms and prepared to prove that he was right. Maya took a deep breath. Then she began to play. The first note came out of the old piano like a whisper. It was soft and gentle, like someone calling a name from far away. Harrison stood with his arms crossed, ready to prove that Maya was just another street performer trying to fool people. But something strange happened when the second note joined the first. Harrison felt a little shock in his chest, like someone had touched his heart with a cold finger. He told himself it was nothing, just the wind. Just his imagination. Maya's fingers moved across the keys like they were floating. The melody was simple at first, just a few notes that seemed to dance together. But there was something about the way she played them, something that made Harrison want to step closer, even though he tried to stay back. The people in the crowd had become completely silent. The businessman with his coffee cup stood like a statue. The woman with the baby stroller had stopped moving. Even the baby was quiet, as if the music had cast a spell on everyone. Harrison looked at their faces. The old man on the bench had tears running down his cheeks. The teenager who had been checking her phone now stood with her mouth open, listening to every note. A woman in a nurse uniform had missed her bus because she could not walk away from the music. The melody grew stronger. Maya added more notes, more layers of sound. Her left hand played deep, sad notes while her right hand played something lighter and more hopeful. The two parts talked to each other like old friends sharing secrets. Harrison felt his heart beating differently, faster but also somehow calmer. The music was getting inside him, finding places he had forgotten existed. He tried to push the feeling away, but it was too strong. The melody reminded him of something from long ago, something he had buried deep in his memory where it could not hurt him anymore. But the music was digging it up note by note. Maya's eyes were closed now. She was not just playing the piano. She was living inside the music. Her whole body moved with the melody. Her head swayed gently. Her shoulders rose and fell with the rhythm. It was like she had become part of the song. Harrison found himself taking a step closer, then another step. He could not help it. The music was pulling him forward like a magnet. He wanted to hear every note perfectly. He wanted to feel every emotion Maya was putting into the song. The melody changed again. It became sadder but also more beautiful. It was the kind of sadness that felt good, like crying when you needed to cry. It was the kind of beauty that made your chest feel full and empty at the same time. Harrison's hands began to shake a little. His throat felt tight. What was happening to him? He was Judge Harrison Blackwell. He did not get emotional over street music. He did not feel things like this. But he could not deny what was happening. The music was reaching into his soul and touching things that had been frozen for 40 years. It was melting the ice around his heart. It was bringing back feelings he had thought were dead. Maya played a series of notes that sounded like someone calling for help. Then the melody answered with notes that sounded like comfort, like arms wrapping around someone who was lost. Harrison felt tears start to form in his eyes. He blinked them away quickly, but more came. The song told a story without words. It was about loneliness and hope, about losing something precious and finding it again, about the way love could hide in the most unexpected places. Harrison understood every word of this silent story. More people had gathered around the piano. They came from the street, from the nearby buildings, from cars that had stopped to listen. But Harrison did not notice them anymore. All he could see was Maya. All he could hear was the music. Maya's fingers found a melody that made Harrison's breath catch in his throat. It was a tune that seemed familiar, but he could not place it. It was like trying to remember a dream that slipped away every time he got close to it. The familiar melody grew stronger. It wrapped around Harrison like a warm blanket. It felt like home. It felt like safety. It felt like love that he had lost a long time ago. His whole body began to tremble. Where had he heard this melody before? When had someone played these exact notes for him? The memory was there, just out of reach, like something hidden in fog. Maya played the melody again, this time with more feeling. Each note was perfect. Each phrase was filled with emotion that came from deep inside her heart. This was not music learned from YouTube. This was not fake performance for money. This was real. This was pure. This was truth. Harrison felt his legs get weak. He wanted to sit down, but he could not move. The music had trapped him in place. It held him like gentle hands, making him listen to every note, feel every emotion. The melody became softer, more personal. It sounded like a lullaby, like something a grandmother might hum to a scared child, like something that could make the whole world feel safe and peaceful. Harrison's chest began to hurt. Not physical pain, but emotional pain that he had kept locked away for decades. The music was opening doors he had nailed shut. It was bringing back memories he had promised himself he would never think about again. A tear rolled down his cheek. Then another. Judge Harrison Blackwell, the powerful man who had never shown weakness, was crying in public because of a street musician's song. Maya played the melody one more time. This time it sounded like goodbye, like someone leaving on a long journey, like love that would always be remembered, even when the person was gone. Harrison gasped. The memory hit him like lightning. Suddenly he knew exactly where he had heard this melody before. He knew who had played it. He knew why it made him feel like his heart was breaking and healing at the same time. The song ended with one soft, perfect note that seemed to hang in the air forever. Maya lifted her hands from the keys and opened her eyes. She looked directly at Harrison. The crowd was completely silent. No one moved. No one breathed. The music had touched everyone, but Harrison felt like it had been played just for him. Maya saw the tears on his face. She saw the shocked look in his eyes. She saw that something had changed in the powerful judge who had called her a fraud. "Where?" Harrison whispered. His voice was so quiet that only Maya could hear him. "Where did you learn that song?" Maya smiled gently. There was understanding in her eyes. She had seen this reaction before. "It has a story," she said softly. "Would you like to hear it?" As Maya's fingers continued to play the beautiful melody, something broke inside Harrison's chest. The wall he had built around his heart cracked open like an egg. All the feelings he had pushed away came rushing back like water through a broken dam. He was not 52 years old anymore. He was not Judge Harrison Blackwell. He was not standing in an expensive park in the rich part of the city. The world around him faded away, and suddenly he was 7 years old again. He was sitting in a small, cramped apartment. The walls were thin. He could hear the neighbors arguing upstairs. The heater was broken, so the apartment was always cold. There was one small window that looked out at a brick wall. The furniture was old and worn. Nothing matched. Everything was secondhand. But in the corner of the tiny living room sat an old upright piano. It was brown and scratched. Some of the keys were yellow with age. It was not a beautiful piano, but it was the most precious thing in that little apartment. And sitting on the piano bench was his grandmother, Elena Reyes. Harrison could see her so clearly now as if she were standing right in front of him. She was a small woman with gray hair that she kept in a neat bun. Her hands were wrinkled and spotted with age. Her fingers were bent with arthritis that made them hurt all the time. But when she sat at that piano, her hands became young again. Elena had come to America when she was 20 years old. She had fled her country with nothing but a small suitcase and her love of music. She could not speak English well. She could not read or write very much, but she could make that old piano sing like angels. Harrison remembered how she would sit at the piano every evening after dinner. He would climb up on the bench beside her, his little legs swinging in the air. Elena would put one arm around him and play with her other hand. Sometimes she played songs from her homeland. Sometimes she played classical pieces she had learned as a child. But his favorite was when she played her own composition. It was the melody Maya was playing now. The same notes, the same gentle rhythm, the same love poured into every phrase. Elena had created this song during her first year in America, when she was lonely and scared and missing her family. She had told Harrison it was their special song. She said it was about finding light in dark places, about how love could survive anything, even when everything else was lost. "This song is ours, mijo," she used to say in her soft, accented voice. "When I am gone, you will remember me in this music, and I will remember you too wherever I am." Harrison had not thought about those words in 40 years, but now they came back to him as clearly as if Elena were whispering them in his ear right now. He remembered how safe he had felt sitting next to his grandmother. The rest of the world was scary and uncertain. His parents had died in a car accident when he was 6. He had no other family except Elena. They had no money. They lived in the poorest part of the city. But when Elena played her special song, everything was okay. Harrison remembered the smell of Elena's perfume. It was cheap perfume from the drugstore, but to him it smelled like flowers and safety. He remembered how her arthritis made her hands shake, except when she played piano. He remembered how she would hum along with the melody in her beautiful broken voice. Elena had worked so hard to take care of him. During the day, she cleaned office buildings downtown. At night, she played piano in small restaurants and bars. She was always tired, but she never complained. Every penny she made went toward taking care of Harrison. She bought him clothes and food and books. She made sure he went to school every day. "Education is the only way out of this life," she would tell him. "You are smart, mijo. You can be anything you want. You can live in a big house. You can wear nice clothes. You can be important. But promise me you will never forget where you came from." Harrison had promised, but he had lied. Or maybe he had just forgotten how to keep promises. When he was 12, Elena got sick. The doctors said it was her heart. She had worked too hard for too many years. She had worried too much. She had given everything she had to make sure Harrison would be okay. Harrison spent 3 months sitting beside her hospital bed after school. Elena got weaker and weaker, but she still talked about music. She made him promise to keep playing piano. She made him promise to remember their special song. "Music is love you can hear," she had whispered to him on her last day. "When you feel lost, play our song. I will be there with you." But Elena died that night, and 12-year-old Harrison was alone in the world. The state put him in a foster home. The foster family was not mean, but they were not loving either. They gave him food and clothes and a place to sleep. But there was no piano. There was no music. There was no one to tell him stories or call him mijo or play their special song. Harrison learned to be tough. He learned to work hard. He learned that emotions made you weak. He got scholarships to good schools. He studied law because lawyers made good money. He never looked back at that small apartment with the old piano and the woman who had loved him. Over the years, he convinced himself that his childhood had been a burden. Poverty was something to be ashamed of. Elena's love of music was just a silly dream that kept poor people from facing reality. Success meant forgetting where you came from. Success meant building walls around your heart so nothing could hurt you. But now, standing in this park listening to Maya play Elena's melody, all those walls came crashing down. Harrison saw Elena's face so clearly. He heard her voice calling him mijo. He felt her arms around him as they sat at the old piano. He smelled her cheap perfume. He remembered how much she had loved him, how much she had sacrificed for him, and he realized with horrible clarity that he had thrown it all away. He had become exactly what Elena had feared. He had become cold and hard and mean. He had gotten his big house and nice clothes and important job, but he had lost his soul in the process. He had forgotten that he had once been a little boy who was loved by a woman who saw music as the most precious gift in the world. Harrison looked at Maya with new eyes. She was about the same age Elena had been when she first came to America. She was poor, like Elena had been. She was playing music on the street because it was the only way she could share her gift, like Elena had done, and Harrison had called her a fraud. He had tried to shame her for doing exactly what Elena had done. He had become the kind of person who would have looked down on his own grandmother. The realization hit him like a physical blow. His knees buckled. He had to lean against a tree to keep from falling down. Maya finished playing the song and looked up at him. She saw the tears streaming down his face. She saw the recognition in his eyes. She knew that this melody had unlocked something important inside this angry, powerful man. "Where did you learn that song?" Harrison whispered again, but this time his voice was not demanding. It was pleading. Like a lost child asking for help, Maya stood up from the piano bench. She walked over to Harrison, who was still leaning against the tree, shaking with emotion. "A woman taught it to me," Maya said gently. "A very special woman named Elena." When Maya said the name Elena, Harrison felt like the ground had disappeared under his feet. He stared at her with wide eyes, his mouth open in shock. The tears on his face felt cold in the morning air. "Elena?" he whispered. His voice was so quiet that Maya had to step closer to hear him. "Did you say Elena?" Maya nodded. Her brown eyes were full of kindness and understanding. "Yes, Elena Reyes, she was a wonderful woman." Harrison's legs gave out completely. He slid down the tree until he was sitting on the ground. He did not care that his expensive suit was getting dirty. He did not care that people were staring at him. Nothing else mattered except what Maya had just said. "Elena Reyes was my grandmother," Harrison said. The words came out like a prayer, like something sacred that he had kept hidden for 40 years. Maya's eyes got wide. She knelt down on the ground next to Harrison, not caring about her old jeans getting dirty either. "Your grandmother?" she said softly. "But that means, oh my goodness, Harrison, she talked about you all the time. You are her mijo." When Maya said that word, amigo, Harrison broke down completely. He put his head in his hands and sobbed like a little child. All the grief he had pushed away came pouring out of him. All the love he had denied. All the guilt he had carried for 40 years. The people in the crowd did not know what to do. They had come to listen to music, not to watch a powerful judge fall apart in public. Some of them walked away embarrassed, but others stayed, sensing that something important was happening. Maya sat on the ground next to Harrison. She did not touch him, but she stayed close enough that he could feel her presence. She waited patiently while he cried, the way Elena used to wait when little Harrison was upset about something. After a few minutes, Harrison lifted his head. His face was red and wet with tears. His perfect hair was messy. His expensive tie was crooked. He looked nothing like the important judge who had walked into the park that morning. "How did you know her?" he asked Maya. "When did you know her?" "She died when I was 12. That was 40 years ago." Maya smiled sadly. "She died 5 years ago, Harrison. Not 40 years ago." Harrison stared at her in confusion. "That's impossible. Elena died in 1985. I was at her funeral. I watched them put her in the ground." "That must have been someone else," Maya said gently. "Elena died in 2020. She was 87 years old. She lived alone in a small apartment on Elm Street. She had diabetes and heart problems, but she was still playing piano until the day she died." Harrison felt dizzy. Nothing Maya was saying made sense. Elena had died when he was 12. He had been alone since then. He had built his whole life on that fact. But the funeral," he stammered. "Harrison," Maya said softly, "what was your grandmother's full name?" "Elena Reyes," Harrison said without hesitation. "And what did she call you?" "Mijo, it means my son in Spanish." "And what song did she play for you?" Harrison gestured toward the piano. "The song you just played. She wrote it herself. She said it was our special song." Maya nodded. "She told me about you. She said her grandson was very smart. She said he became a lawyer. She said he lived in a big house and wore expensive clothes. She said she was proud of him, but also sad because he never visited her anymore." Harrison felt like he was going to be sick. "That's impossible. Elena died when I was 12. I was put in foster care. I had no family left." Harrison, Maya said very gently, I think there has been a terrible mistake. Elena was alive until 5 years ago. She lived alone, but she was not forgotten. She had friends. She had students who came to learn piano from her. She had people who loved her. But the social worker told me, Harrison started to say, then stopped. He tried to remember exactly what had happened after Elena went to the hospital. It had been so long ago. He had been just a child, scared and confused. Slowly, a horrible truth began to form in his mind. What if Elena had not died in the hospital that night? What if she had just been very sick? What if the social worker had told him she was dead so he would not fight being taken away? What if they thought a sick old woman could not take care of a child? Oh God, Harrison whispered. What if she lived? What if she got better? What if she spent 40 years thinking I had abandoned her? Maya reached out and took Harrison's hand. Her fingers were gentle, like Elena's used to be. She never stopped loving you, Maya said. She kept a picture of you on her piano. It was an old school picture from when you were 12. She would look at it every day and wonder what you looked like now. She would wonder if you remembered her. She would wonder if you still played piano. Harrison pulled his hand away and put both hands over his face. The guilt was crushing him. If Elena had been alive all these years, if she had been waiting for him, if she had died thinking he did not care. She understood, Maya said quickly, seeing the pain on his face. She knew you were busy with your important life. She knew you had moved on to bigger things. She was not angry with you, Harrison. She was proud of you. But I never called, Harrison said through his tears. I never wrote. I never tried to find her. I convinced myself she was dead so I would not have to feel guilty about forgetting her. You were a child when you lost her, Maya said. Children believe what adults tell them. If someone told you she was dead, how could you know it was not true? But Harrison knew it was more complicated than that. Even if he had believed Elena was dead at first, he could have tried to find out more when he got older. He could have looked for her grave. He could have asked questions. But he had not wanted to. He had wanted to forget his poor childhood. He had wanted to pretend he came from somewhere better. Tell me about her, Harrison said suddenly. Tell me about the last years of her life. Tell me everything. Maya smiled. She was still beautiful even when she got old. She still wore her hair in a bun, but it was completely white. She still played piano every day, even though her arthritis made it hurt. She still hummed that special song you loved. Harrison listened to every word, hungry for details about the grandmother he had lost twice. She gave piano lessons to children in her neighborhood, Maya continued. She never charged much money because most of the families were poor. She said music was a gift that should be shared, not sold. She played at church on Sundays. She played at the senior center on Wednesday afternoons. How did you meet her? Harrison asked. Maya was quiet for a moment, like she was deciding how much to tell him. I was in a bad place 5 years ago, she said finally. I was homeless. I was sleeping in the subway station near her apartment. One night, Elena found me there. Instead of calling the police, she took me home. Harrison looked at Maya with new understanding. Elena had always helped people who needed help. Even when she was old and sick, she had still been rescuing lost souls. She let me stay in her spare bedroom, Maya said. She fed me. She helped me get clean from drugs. And she taught me to play piano. That special song of yours was the first one she taught me. She said it was the most important song she knew. What did she tell you about me? Harrison asked, even though he was afraid to hear the answer. She said you were the light of her life, Maya said. She said you were smart and kind and that you had a good heart. She said she knew you would do important things in the world. She said she prayed for you every night. Harrison felt like his heart was being ripped in half. Elena had loved him until the day she died. She had been proud of him. She had prayed for him, and he had not even known she was alive. Did she ever ask about me? Harrison whispered. Maya nodded. All the time. She would wonder if you were married. If you had children. If you were happy. She would say, I hope my mijo knows how much his abuela loved him. Abuela, grandmother. Harrison had not heard that word in 40 years. It hit him like a physical blow. I have to see her, Harrison said suddenly, struggling to stand up. I have to go to her. I have to tell her I'm sorry. I have to tell her I never forgot her. Maya's face filled with sadness. Harrison, she said gently, Elena died 2 years ago. I'm so sorry. When Maya told Harrison that Elena had died 2 years ago, he felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. All the air left his lungs. The world started spinning around him. He had to grab the tree again to keep from falling over. "No," he whispered. "No, that cannot be true. I just found out she was alive. I cannot lose her again so quickly." Maya's eyes filled with tears as she watched Harrison struggle with this terrible news. She understood his pain because she had felt it too when Elena died. Losing someone you love is always hard, but losing someone you thought you had already lost, then finding out they were alive all along, then losing them again, that kind of pain was almost impossible to bear. "I'm so sorry," Maya said. "I wish I could have brought you together before she died. I wish I had known who you were sooner." Harrison sank back down to the ground. He felt empty inside, like someone had scooped out everything that mattered and left him hollow. For a few beautiful moments he had thought he could see Elena again. He had thought he could apologize and tell her he loved her, and make up for all the lost years. But now that chance was gone forever. "Tell me about when she died," Harrison said quietly. "Was she alone? Was she scared? Did she suffer?" Maya sat down next to him again. She took a deep breath like she was preparing to tell a difficult story. "It was in the winter," Maya began. "Elena had been getting weaker for months. The diabetes was making her very sick. Her heart was not working well. But she refused to go to the hospital. She said she wanted to die at home with her piano." Harrison closed his eyes and tried to imagine Elena in her last days. He pictured her in a small apartment, probably not much different from the one they had shared when he was a child. Old furniture, thin walls, but with a piano in the corner. "I was staying with her at the end," Maya continued. "She had asked me to come back and take care of her. She did not have anyone else." This sentence hit Harrison like a knife in the heart. Elena had not had anyone else because her grandson had abandoned her. She had died with only a young woman she had rescued from the streets, instead of with the family who should have been there. "What were her last days like?" Harrison asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. Maya smiled through her tears. They were beautiful in a sad way. Elena was not afraid of dying. She said she had lived a good life. She said she had loved people and been loved. She said that was enough. Did she mention me?" Maya nodded. "Every day. She would look at your picture and tell me stories about when you were little. She told me about how you used to sit next to her at the piano. She told me about the songs she sang to you. She told me about how proud she was when you learned to read. She told me about your first day of school when you cried because you did not want to leave her." Harrison had forgotten about that first day of school, but now he remembered it clearly. He had clung to Elena's dress and begged her not to make him go. She had knelt down and promised him that she would be right there waiting when he came home. And she had been. She had always been there when he needed her. "She never stopped believing you would come back," Maya said. "Even at the very end, she would ask me to play your special song. She said it was a way of calling you home. She said maybe if she played it enough times, you would hear it wherever you were and remember to come see your abuela." Harrison put his head in his hands again. Elena had been calling him home with music, and he had been too busy, too proud, too successful to listen. "The night she died," Maya continued, "she asked me to play the song one more time. She was very weak, but she tried to sing along. Her voice was just a whisper, but she remembered every word of the melody." "What did she say at the end?" Harrison asked. Maya was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was very soft. She said, "Tell my mijo that his abuela never stopped loving him. Tell him that I understand why he could not come back. Tell him that I am proud of the man he became. Tell him that when he hears our song, I will be there with him." Harrison started crying again, but this time the tears were different. They were not just tears of sadness and guilt. They were also tears of relief. Elena had forgiven him, even though he had not deserved forgiveness. She had understood, even though there was nothing to understand. She had loved him until the very end. "But how was I supposed to find you?" Harrison asked Maya. "How was I supposed to know that Elena wanted me to hear this message?" Maya looked toward the old piano in the park. "Elena made me promise something before she died. She made me promise to keep playing our song in public places. She said music had a way of finding the people who needed to hear it. She said if I played the song enough times in enough places, somehow it would reach you." Harrison looked at Maya with amazement. "You mean, you have been playing Elena's song all over the city? Looking for me?" Maya nodded. For 2 years. I have played in parks and subway stations and street corners. I have played in rich neighborhoods and poor neighborhoods. I played the song every day, hoping that someday, somehow, Elena's grandson would hear it and recognize it. And you found me, Harrison whispered. No, Maya said with a smile. Elena found you. She guided me here, to this park at the exact time when you would be walking by. She kept her promise. She brought you home. Harrison looked around the park with new eyes. This morning, it had just been an expensive neighborhood full of important people, but now it felt sacred. This was the place where Elena had reached across death to touch his heart one more time. This was where her love had finally found him. There's something else, Maya said. She reached into her backpack and pulled out an old envelope. It was yellowed with age and had been opened and refolded many times. Elena wrote you a letter, Maya said. She wrote it the day before she died. She asked me to give it to you if I ever found you. Harrison stared at the envelope like it might explode. His name was written on it in Elena's careful handwriting. The same handwriting that had helped him with his homework 40 years ago. She wrote me a letter? He whispered. She had a lot she wanted to say to you, Maya said. Things she wished she had been able to tell you in person. Harrison took the letter with shaking hands. The paper felt fragile, like it might crumble if he held it too tightly. For a moment he was afraid to open it. What if Elena was angry with him? What if she blamed him for staying away? What if her final words were full of disappointment and hurt? But then he remembered what Maya had told him. Elena had understood. Elena had forgiven him. Elena had loved him until the very end. With careful fingers, Harrison opened the envelope and began to read Elena's last words to her mijo. Harrison held Elena's letter in his trembling hands. The paper was soft and worn, like Elena had held it many times before giving it to Maya. He could smell a faint trace of the cheap perfume Elena used to wear. Even after 2 years, her scent was still there on the paper. The letter was written in Spanish and English the way Elena used to talk when she was emotional. Her handwriting was shaky from age and sickness, but every word was carefully formed with love. My dearest Mijo, the letter began. If you are reading this, it means Maya found you. It means the music brought you home just like I always believed it would. Harrison had to stop reading for a moment. Even in a letter, Elena's voice was so clear. He could hear her saying the words in his mind. I know you probably think I am angry with you for staying away so long. But mijo, I am not angry. I am proud. You became everything I dreamed you could become. You are successful. You are important. You live in the big world, not in the small world where I stayed. Harrison wiped his eyes and continued reading. I understand why you could not come back. The life you built was so different from the life we had together. Maybe you thought I would not fit in your new world. Maybe you thought I would embarrass you. Maybe you just forgot about the poor old woman who used to play piano for you. All of this is okay, mijo. Love does not need visits to stay alive. The words blurred as Harrison's eyes filled with tears again. Elena had understood him better than he understood himself. She had known exactly why he stayed away, and she had forgiven him for all of it. I want you to know that I never stopped playing our special song. Every night before bed, I would sit at my piano and play it for you. I would imagine that somehow, wherever you were, you could hear it. I would imagine it was keeping you safe and reminding you that your abuela loved you. Harrison looked over at Maya, who was sitting quietly beside him. She was giving him space to read the letter privately, but he could see that she was crying too. Maya is a good girl. The letter continued. She reminds me of you when you were young. She was lost and scared when I found her, just like you were lost and scared when your parents died. I helped her the same way I tried to help you. She has a beautiful heart and a gift for music. Please be kind to her. Please help her if you can. Harrison looked at Maya with new understanding. Elena had seen something special in this young woman, just like she had seen something special in him. Elena had spent her last years teaching Maya the same lessons she had taught Harrison so long ago. I have one last request, mijo. The letter went on. Do not let my music die with me. The song I wrote for us, it is not just ours anymore. It belongs to everyone who needs to feel love, everyone who feels lost, everyone who needs to remember that they are not alone. Please keep it alive. Please share it with the world. Harrison felt a warm feeling spreading through his chest. Elena was asking him to do something important. She was asking him to carry on her legacy of love through music. I will not be here much longer, the letter said near the end. But do not be sad for me. I am ready to go. I lived long enough to see you grow up to be a good man. I lived long enough to teach Maya the things she needed to know. I lived long enough to love and be loved. That is more than many people get. The letter ended with words that made Harrison's heart feel full and broken at the same time. Remember, mijo, that love is the only thing that really matters. Money and success and important jobs. These things are nice, but they cannot hug you when you are scared. They cannot sing to you when you are sad. They cannot play music that touches your soul. Only love can do these things. I hope you find love in your life. I hope you learn to give it and receive it. And I hope you remember that your abuela's love will always be with you. In every note of our special song. Con amor para siempre, Abuela Elena. Harrison folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. He sat in silence for several minutes, thinking about everything Elena had written. Then he looked at Maya. Thank you, he said simply. Thank you for taking care of her. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for keeping her music alive, Maya smiled. She made it easy to love her, just like I think she made it easy for you to love her when you were little. Harrison nodded. Then he looked at the piano in the park. People had started to gather again, wondering if there would be more music. Some of them recognized Harrison as the judge who had been arguing with the street musician earlier. They were curious about what had happened to change everything. Maya, Harrison said slowly, would you teach me to play Elena's song again? I used to know it when I was a child, but I forgot. I want to remember. Maya's face lit up with joy. Of course. Elena would love that. They walked over to the piano together. Maya sat on one side of the bench and patted the space next to her. Harrison sat down just like he used to sit next to Elena 40 years ago. Put your hands here, Maya said gently, guiding Harrison's fingers to the right keys. The song starts very softly, like someone whispering a secret. Harrison pressed the keys carefully. The notes came out uncertain and rusty, but they were right. Muscle memory from his childhood was still there, buried deep but not forgotten. That's it, Maya encouraged him. Now this part goes up like hope rising. Together they played Elena's special song. Harrison's part was simple and sometimes wrong, but Maya filled in the gaps with her skilled playing. The melody rose and fell between them like a conversation between old friends. People gathered around the piano to listen. But this time Harrison did not care about the crowd. He was not embarrassed to be seen playing music in public. He was not worried about his reputation or his image. He was just a grandson playing a song his grandmother had written for him. When the song ended, the crowd clapped softly. Harrison looked around at their faces and saw the same peace and joy that Elena's music had always brought to people. This is what Elena wanted, Harrison said to Maya. She wanted her music to touch people's hearts. She wanted it to bring comfort to people who needed it. Over the next few months, Harrison's life changed completely. He used his money and influence to create music programs for children who could not afford piano lessons. He bought new instruments for schools in poor neighborhoods. He helped young musicians like Maya find places to perform. He also had workers fix up the old piano in the park. They tuned it and polished it and put a small plaque on it that said, "In memory of Elena Reyes, who believed music was love you could hear." Maya continued to play in the park, but now she was not alone. Sometimes Harrison would join her on the bench, playing simple melodies while she played the complex parts. Sometimes children from the music programs would come and perform. Sometimes Elena's old friends from the neighborhood would stop by and share stories about her. Harrison learned that Elena had touched many lives during her years in the city. She had taught dozens of children to play piano. She had helped families who were struggling. She had played music at hospitals and nursing homes and anywhere else people needed to hear something beautiful. Most importantly, Harrison learned how to love again. He learned how to open his heart to other people. He learned that success was not about having the most money or the biggest house. It was about making the world a little better, one person at a time. He kept Elena's picture on his desk at the courthouse now. When he had to make difficult decisions about people's lives, he would look at her face and ask himself what she would want him to do. Elena had always believed in giving people second chances. She had always believed in forgiveness and kindness. On the anniversary of Elena's death, Harrison and Maya played her special song together in the park. A large crowd gathered to listen, including many of Elena's former students and friends. When the music ended, an old man stepped forward. "I knew Elena," he said in a voice thick with emotion. "She taught my daughter to play piano 30 years ago. My daughter died in an accident 5 years ago, but she never forgot Elena's kindness. Elena came to the funeral and played this exact song. She said it was about love that never dies. One by one, other people shared their memories of Elena. A woman said Elena had played at her wedding for free because the family had no money for a musician. A teenager said Elena had given him piano lessons in exchange for helping her carry groceries. An old woman said Elena had played music at the nursing home every week, bringing joy to people who had forgotten how to smile. Harrison listened to all these stories with wonder. Elena had lived a rich life, even though she had never had much money. She had been loved by many people, even though she had died alone except for Maya. She had made a difference in the world through small acts of kindness and the gift of music. That night, Harrison went home to his big, expensive house, but it did not feel empty anymore. It felt full of Elena's love and Maya's friendship and the music that connected them all. He sat at the new piano he had bought, the first piano he had owned since childhood, and played Elena's song. As the beautiful melody filled his house, Harrison felt Elena's presence around him. He felt her love, her forgiveness, her pride in the man he was becoming. The music carried all of these feelings and more, just like Elena had promised it would. Harrison had spent 40 years building walls around his heart. But Elena's love had torn those walls down note by note until his heart was open again. He had learned that it was never too late to change. Never too late to love. Never too late to come home. The song ended, but the love continued. And in the silence that followed, Harrison whispered the words he had never been able to say. "Thank you, Abuela. I love you too."